Hi everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Quarantine History. Today, I'm going to talk about a place whose reputation and popularity certainly preceded. I've had several requests to do a video about this most extraordinary of Greek islands, and that is, of course, the island of Santorini. If you're on any kind of social media, you will invariably have seen images of the breathtaking beauty of the island of Santorini. It's one of the world's most photographed and hashtagged locations and is a dream destination for honeymooners, cruise ship passengers, adventure seekers, and the ultimate place for a destination wedding. But Santorini is not just whitewashed houses perched atop precipitous cliffs and blue-domed churches gleaming in the Aegean sky. It's also a place whose history is almost as long as that of Greece itself, and a place that has the dark distinction of being the location of one of the world's most destructive natural disasters. So let's jump right in and talk about this magical place whose volcanic ash strata hide layers of history just waiting to come to light. The Greek island of Santorini, whose official name is Thera, is just a speck in the middle of the glistening blue Aegean Sea. In total, the main island and its surrounding volcanic islets is only 30 square miles in area, making it just about half the size of Manhattan. It's part of the Greek island group called the Cyclades, the name of which references the shape that the islands belonging to this group form, that is, a circle. Another famous Greek destination, the island of Mykonos, also belongs to this Cycladic group of islands that sit between mainland Greece to the west and Turkey to the east in the eastern Mediterranean. It is here that the African tectonic plate slips under the Eurasian plate, making the whole region prone to seismic activity, but also blessing Greece with its thousands of islands and islets. It's also here that in the 17th century BC, a cataclysmic volcanic eruption shook the entire region and sent shockwaves across the Mediterranean and beyond. You see, Santorini is in fact a massive volcano rising from the depths of the sea to the surface, and the only thing visible today is the rim of that volcano. If you arrive in Santorini by boat, you'll sail through the immense collapsed crater of this volcanic island in order to get to the port. The first thing you see as you approach the island is what looks like snow on top of the steep cliffs. As you near the island, though, you realize that this snow is in fact the whitewashed houses of the towns clinging to those cliffs. And those cliffs are in fact the rim of one of the world's largest volcanic craters. But don't worry. The volcano is dormant at the moment and has been since its last eruption, which took place in 1950 and which lasted a full month. However, volcanologists do still classify Santorini as an active volcano. There are many theories regarding Santorini's explosive past. One theory says that the island was once circular, and the colossal eruption of the 17th century BC Minoan Bronze Age sank the center of the island, leaving the 7.5 by 4.5 mile caldera, or crater, rising out of the depths. Seawater rushed in and left 1,000-foot steep cliffs on three sides of that crater that today is lined with those typical whitewashed, dome-roofed houses and traditional cave dwellings. Santorini is actually a group of several small volcanic islands. The two that sit in the center of the caldera are, in effect, the tip of the resurgent volcano and are the result of multiple volcanic eruptions at the center of that caldera since the 2nd century BC. These low rocky islets are part of a cyclical process of the caldera slowly refilling with magma, which eventually builds a new volcano, which then erupts and collapses back into the sea and starts all over again. So in theory, the caldera could be completely filled in once again before another supercolossal eruption causes its collapse. Today, volcanologists have been able to classify historic volcanic eruptions using what is called a volcanic explosivity index, whose scale ranges from 0 to 8 in order to determine the magnitude of an eruption. The Minoan eruption of Santorini rates a 7 on this scale and is categorized as being a supercolossal eruption, and as a result, considered as one of the largest volcanic events on Earth in recorded history. For comparison, both the eruptions of Mount St. Helens in 1980, as well as the 1st century AD eruption of Mount Vesuvius, are classed as number 5, which means that the Santorini Minoan eruption was 24 times greater than either of these volcanic eruptions. The magnitude of the Santorini volcano was such that it released 600 megatons of energy. What does that mean? It's the equivalent of about 50,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs. It unleashed earthquakes and tsunamis that scientists and archaeologists believe reached the coast of Crete and even as far away as Egypt, and sent ash and other volcanic material into the atmosphere and covered the remains of the island in a 200-foot layer of white tephra. The island of Santorini is also the location of what is often referred to as the Pompeii of Greece, a town which in modern times has been baptized Akrotiri, because archaeologists still don't know what the ancient name of that town was. Akrotiri was covered in 200 feet of volcanic ash during the eruption of the 1600s BC, so it's been preserved largely intact to this day and gives us a glimpse into what life would have been like for its inhabitants approximately 3,500 years ago. Pompeii, by comparison, was destroyed in the 1st century AD, meaning just 1900 years ago. Akrotiri was a wealthy city that was extremely advanced for its time, so much so that it had multi-story buildings, for example, with balconies even, plumbing, underfloor heating, running hot and cold water, and many other things. Legend has it that this advanced civilization may even have been the inspiration for Plato's Atlantis. Everywhere else in Europe at that time, people lived in simple huts and built structures such as Stonehenge. And you can just think that today there are many places in the world that don't have the amenities that existed on Santorini in the 17th century BC. The inhabitants of that ancient city of Akrotiri most likely had advance warning of the eruption, because nothing valuable, meaning gold or silver, has been found in the archaeological site. The only gold object so far found in the entire archaeological site was a golden earring that 4,000 years ago had dropped into the drain pipe of a bathroom sink. I think this story is so poignant because anybody who wears earrings has at some point in their life lost one of them down the bathroom sink. So archaeologists think that the Minoan inhabitants of ancient Akrotiri had had time to pack up their possessions and flee south to the neighboring Minoan settlements on the island of Crete before the eruption. Today, this journey takes just a few hours by ship. Following the eruption of the 17th century BC, the island was abandoned and wouldn't be inhabited again for many, many centuries. The remains of later civilizations can be seen on Santorini as well, but Akrotiri is by far the most fascinating. As with many great archaeological discoveries, Akrotiri was uncovered quite by accident. In the 1800s, workers were quarrying ash and pumice on the island of Santorini for the building of the Suez Canal. As they dug down, they came across artifacts and realized that a city lay buried in that location. But it wasn't until the 1960s that full-scale archaeological excavations truly began. Excavations continue to this day, having only uncovered about a third of the ancient city. But the site is open to visitors who today have the rare opportunity to walk through a city that's almost 4,000 years old. Following the last volcanic eruption, the one in 1950, the island Santorini was once again slowly reborn from its ashes. This time, it has undergone a transformation into one of the world's premier luxury tourist destinations. And not only, because even though the island is tiny, There is in fact something for every budget and for every taste. From exclusive resorts with private infinity pools perched on the rim of the caldera to public beaches of black, white, or red sand with stunning backdrops of lunar-like landscapes. From private sunset catamaran cruises around the caldera to horseback riding along a black sand beach. From swimming in volcanic hot springs to climbing to the very center of the resurgent volcano. And then, of course, there's the delicious Santorini cuisine and wine. The geology of the land, that is, its layers of various volcanic sediments, combined with the temperate climate of this part of the Mediterranean, have created the ideal conditions for growing grapes of high quality, which subsequently produce wines of high quality and distinctive taste. Today, there are approximately 20 wineries on the island that can be visited. Something truly unique, though, about the vineyards on the island is that the grapevines themselves are pruned so they grow into basket-like shapes which rest on the volcanic soil. As the vines grow, the grapes are sheltered within that basket shape. The reason for this is that the island is virtually treeless, and the strong winds that batter the island in the winter months would uproot traditional vineyard structures. But also, these basket-like vineyard structures protect the grapes from the scorching summer heat. Wine has been produced on the island of Santorini since ancient times, but it was really in the Middle Ages and under the influence of the Venetians, who then occupied the island, that wine growing really took off, or wine production really took off. The Venetians' vast trade network and maritime control meant that Santorini wines were exported throughout the Mediterranean and Europe in general. The wines were highly prized, so much so that when the Ottoman Empire gained control of the island in the 1500s, they continued to allow production and export of the wines, even though the Muslim faith forbids alcohol. Despite its small size, Santorini still packs a comparatively large culinary punch. Some of the most famous and traditional Santorini specialties include tomato croquettes, which are called tomato keftedes, made from a local cherry tomato variety, which is also delicious in its sun-dried version. Mashed fava bean dip, garnished with local capers, and any dish using the locally grown white eggplant. But of course, the main reason that most people visit Santorini is that they've been lured here by its breathtaking beauty in images they've seen across social media, on travel sites, and in travel bloggers' posts. No place on earth can claim this winning combination of stunning scenery, romantic sunsets, dazzling nightlife, gorgeous marble-lined paths winding through unique Cycladic architecture, fascinating history, mouth-watering cuisine, and distinctive fine wines. The island of Santorini today is one of the jewels in the Greek destination crown, an enchantress whose beauty was born of an explosive past and whose energy continues to reverberate across the ages.